Warm welcome to all of you to this very important event in our series on refugees. My name is Paolo von Schirach, and I serve as the president of the Global Policy Institute, and I'll be your host today, and we'll have soon a discussion with our distinguished guest joining us from Baku, live from Azerbaijan. I also serve as a professor of political science and international relations at Bay Atlantic University. For those of you who are not familiar about us, we are located in downtown Washington, D.C., for whatever it's worth, in close proximity to the White House. So if you can locate the White House, we're just next door. We are fortunate to have today talking to us about this important but somewhat sadly forgotten issue of ethnic Azerbaijani people who were forcibly removed from their native Armenia. We have here a spokesperson for an organization that is focusing on the problem of these people, and her name is Olivia. Sorry, I hope I pronounce it correctly. Olivia Ulia. Sorry, Zulfikar. I apologize for destroying your name. Olivia Ulia Zulfikar. So, Ulia, we're very glad that you can join us. Please start by telling our audience about you, about your organization, and about the issue that is very dear to you and that you, provide information about so that it doesn't get lost in the general consciousness in the people there, in the region, but also more broadly around the world. Please tell us about you and your organization and the issue that we are discussing today.
Thank you, Mr. Paolo. Thank you for inviting me, and it's a great honor for me to join this webinar and also, as you said, to have this great chance to talk about Western Azerbaijanis, Western Azerbaijan, me, myself, and etc. Thank you very much. I always remember my mom's words. She said that when you start reading a book from the middle, you maybe won't be able to understand anything. That's why I'd like to just give a brief historical introduction to the issue. Imagine that in 19th century, you are in 19th century, and there is a war between Russia and Iran, and it ends with I could say it ends with a treatment, two-franchise treatment. And by this treatment in 1828, they move Armenian families to the areas where Azerbaijanis used to live. Then beginning from the 19th centuries, they start somehow deporting partly Azerbaijanis from this area. And during the last century, starting from the 1955, these deportations gained a great scale. And from these deportations, now they start 4 deportations of Western Azerbaijanis from Armenia, from nowadays Armenia. And Azerbaijanis used to live there. They were majority in this area. Then in 1918, there is the second deportation, which my grandfather also was between them. When he was 4, he was forcibly moved from Yerevan, now which is the capital of Armenia, and his family, which consisted of 12 persons, were killed, and only he, with his sister, managed to just escape to now Azerbaijan, which is now Azerbaijan Republic. So then the third deportation, it began with a decree of Stalin, maybe close to 100,000 Azerbaijanis were moved from Armenia to Azerbaijan, from mountainous areas to flat areas. And that's why most of them, couldn't resist this kind of climate and unfortunately died. So the last one. It happened in 1987 to 1991. Why I say that in 1991? Because the last Azerbaijani village it was Nuvadi. And when last Azerbaijani left this village, Armenia became a monoethnic country. So it started in 1987, yes. And with when the first Azerbaijanis were deported from Kafan, which is now, we call it Gafan, but Armenians call it Kapan. Yes, and everything started from this time. And then the next year, some kind of, something began happening. They say that we want Karabakh as to be part of us, to be part of Armenia, while it was the part of Azerbaijan. So it was the beginning of the conflict, I could say, the Karabakh conflict. And more than 300,000 people, Azerbaijanis, Western Azerbaijanis, were deported forcibly from Armenia, and they had Armenian passports. Armenian passport, and you gain the status of refugee. You know, Mr. Paolo better than me that when you are just deported from your own country and now you're a refugee. So it lasted 35 years, and more than 300 people, Azerbaijanis, were deported, and 2016 were killed, unfortunately. Then it followed Karabakh conflict. So we could say that it was the beginning of Karabakh conflict. And it lasted till 2020 and 2023 too. So what we want now, Azerbaijanis, Western Azerbaijanis, they just want to go back to their homeland. We know that there is Armenia. We accept it as a republic. We know that United Nations recognize Armenia as a republic. We do also. And in our concept of return, the concept of return of Western Azerbaijan community, we created a community. But just let me to jump from a topic to a topic. It was created in 1989 as Azerbaijani Society of Refugees. Then after the victory of the Karabakh War, after the victory of Karabakh War, we rechanged its name to Western Azerbaijan Community. Why Western Azerbaijan? Because everyone here identifies as Western Azerbaijanis. They call us Western Azerbaijanis, and the heirs of Western Azerbaijanis also they call Western Azerbaijanis. That's why we named this community, this non-governmental organization, as Western Azerbaijan Community. So then we accepted our concept of return, that we want to go back to our homeland in a safe, dignified way. But after we sent a letter to Mr. Nikol Pashinyan, the Prime Minister of Armenia, we told him that we want a dialogue with your government. We want to go back to our homeland. We want to reintegrate to your society. Then we didn't accept any answer. But after 3 or 5 days, we saw in Armenian media that he said that as if we are making a territorial claim. But an NGO can't make a territorial claim. But if you are sending a letter to the head of the government and say that I want to go back to my native land, I accept you as a country, as a republic, and I want to reintegrate to your society, please accept us. This is not a territorial claim. How can it be? And we don't have an army. We are not a republic. We are NGO. So then just a little bit information about our heritage. Which is now destroyed, unfortunately, in Armenia. We had more than 300 mosques. And one of them in Yerevan now, they call it Göy Masjid, Blue Mosque. But unfortunately, it is introduced to the guests as belonging to another country. Pir Hussein also, it's like another mosque. But more than 300 mosques were destroyed. 500 cemeteries were completely destroyed. There were buildings were built over them, schools and boulevards, etc. So we had 600 cemeteries. Most 500 of them are completely destroyed. We have Ashik art, which is included to UNESCO's list. But Göçe Ashik art also had some impacts from this deportation. So unfortunately, it's not only people who just suffered from these deportations, our cultural heritage also. Our homes, when we look just from Google Map, we see that our houses are destroyed. They are still in a destroyed. We saw this in Agdam, in Fizuli, in Karabakh, how the houses are completely destroyed. No one lives there. It's just really ruins. Now we see it when we look from Google Map to Armenia, to the areas which Azerbaijanis used to live. So when Armenians left Karabakh intentionally, no one, of course, told them to leave. Azerbaijan told them, stay in my area, be my citizen. I give you a chance to reintegrate to my society. I wish we had the same suggestions from Armenian government also, In our letter, we asked, yes,
sorry to interrupt. Hey, can you, for everybody here who obviously is not familiar with the whole history, was there this deportation, the last one, the last deportation, we're talking about 1988, right? More or less. Was there an official act on the part of the Armenian government that says, okay, from now on, we hereby decree that all Armenians of Azeri ethnicity have to go? Is there an official act that was promulgated by whoever the authority was at the time that made that clear, or is just a phenomenon that simply people were kicked out with no explanation? And what did it happen? Did they try to give a legal justification? Why would these people who were Armenian citizens, as you pointed out, only of Azeri, culture and ethnicity and language, as there are many other minorities in many countries, around the world, that's not new. Why were they evicted? What was the official justification provided by the then authorities in Armenia for this? Can you explain that to us?
Yes. It was the beginning of the collapse of Soviet Union, and there were great mess in the countries, including Armenia, Azerbaijan. And when Armenian radicalists, they saw that Soviet Union is going to collapse and there's some chaos, and they started to make a claim, territorial claims to Azerbaijan, that as if Karabakh is their part, Karabakh should be theirs. And then they started hating Azerbaijanis, as if they don't let us to take Karabakh. And there were some clashes also. They killed some people in Karabakh, some Azerbaijanis in Karabakh. Of course, Azerbaijanis resisted, and everything began like this in chaotic temp. And they started, Azerbaijani people in Armenia, they said that we are feeling that we are having here some pressure, They didn't let them to work in good places. When they saw Azerbaijani kids, they started throwing stones to them, and pressures began. Then Azerbaijani villages, yes, of course, Armenian government gave them 2 hours, just 2 hours to leave the village. They sent them tracks. They sent people in soldier, like in distresses, and they gave them 2 hours. Okay, leave in 2 hours, whatever you can take to the tracks and leave. And we have stories like this. People were moved to buses and tracks, and in the middle of the way, they stopped their buses where Azerbaijanis are in it, and just started beating them. Most of them killed. Most of them were in a very bad situation. They said, okay, we will give you to Azerbaijani side. But in the middle of the way, they stopped the bus and started beating them. Yes, it was an act of Armenian government, unfortunately. And only a few hours were given to Azerbaijanis during these 3 years. Village by village, city by city, region by region. And I don't know if you know where Azerbaijan gave 10 days to Armenian residents who wants to leave, or maybe Armenian soldiers who wants to leave Kalbajar, while they gave only 10 hours to Azerbaijanis. They didn't obey this also.
So, okay, let's fast forward. So this is what happened back in 1988, as you explained, and for everybody to familiarize themselves. Obviously these were chaotic days. the Soviet Union was in it's a literally final days. There was a lot of confusion, and although the formal dissolution of the Soviet Union happened a little bit later, but it was quite clear that the Soviet Empire was collapsing, and your country, Azerbaijan, as well as Georgia, as well as Armenia, were sort of at this periphery of the empire that was in chaos and in turmoil. And that unfortunately encouraged, as you explained, these ethnic animosities and these territorial claims, which we know were unfounded by the Armenians for Karabakh, and which took so long to settle in order for Azerbaijan, through military action, fortunately, to regain full sovereignty over its territory. And again, blessedly, right now, there is peace. There's no fighting. The territorial claims have been satisfied. And to the best of my knowledge, and maybe you can enlighten us a little bit more, there are underway negotiations, right, between Baku and Yerevan to finalize all this, right, to settle the conflict, to establish mutually recognized borders in order to there's no territorial issue anymore coming up that will more conflict. But regarding the situation of all these people who were evicted so many years ago, and you say that it would be obviously fair for them to regain the right to have access to go back as Armenian citizens, which they used to be, back to Armenia. But how can this, we understand that the Armenian government is not interested in having this conversation right now, but how do you frame the issue? We're talking about how many people do you think of all those who left? And at this point, I would say the descendants. It's probably many of these people who are old probably died. So we're talking about their children, grandchildren, now in 2024. How is this framed in a way that it is actionable? Meaning, what would be your plan? How would you describe your plan in allowing these Azeri people, Azerbaijani people, who were born as Armenians with an Armenian citizenship and passport? Where would they go? As you say, much has been destroyed, properties have been destroyed. So where do you go back to? If your home is no longer there, your land has been repurposed for other things. You had a business, that business is gone, years and years ago. How does that, in a practical way, how would that work? Can you, based on your, your plans? What is it, if you could have somebody sitting across from you, representative of the Armenian government, you would, in good faith, sitting down and say, okay, we're willing to listen. What is it that you're asking? What is it that you are asking? Because to say return, it's a good idea, but you have to return to a place, right? You don't go to a hotel. You need a home. So if you want to go back and you need to make a living, you have to be allowed to work. There are all kinds of things on the practical side that would need to be satisfied. How would you see that happening in the best of circumstances? If you could have a nice, peaceful, friendly conversation with Armenian counterparts, what would you ask?
Okay. Thank you for your question. Yes, in our concept of return, we accepted the concept of return last year. We described this process like this. We know that it will be a long process, and we re-registered Azerbaijani citizens who were forcibly deported because during the Soviet times, we think that it's more than 300,000 people. And while we re-registered this, it changed. It's likely not 300,000, maybe more. And now they have heirs. Now they have children, as you said. According to international law, you know it better than me, Mr. Paolo, they also have rights to go back to their homeland because they could be born in their own native land. Now they couldn't do it because of deportation, so they also have the right to go back. So, as you said, if we have a friendly talk, it doesn't mean it's in peace treaty or out of peace treaty, after or before, during. We are not interested in it. We describe it like this: we are having an international framework with Armenian counterparts, and first, of course, we had bad, something bad happened to us. We had deportations, and that's why there should be an international mission which could go before us to these lands which we were deported. Of course, everyone will be back to their own village, to their own city, not to a buffer zone, to a place where Armenian government said that you can go back to this area. No, everyone should go to their own villages. We say in peaceful, safe, and dignified way. What does it mean? Peaceful, in a peaceful talks with Armenian counterparts, in an international framework, of course. Safe, how safe? Before us, there should be an international mission which could go to these areas. We'll be back after this, treaty with Armenia, and they will check how is the situation. Is it safe? Is it okay? How this place is being, how this place is safe to go back. So after there will be we will talk with Armenian counterparts that there are destroyed houses, so we can't go back to the destroyed houses. Armenian part should rebuild these houses, should make their circumstances for Azerbaijani citizens, I'm sorry. Then after we have houses rebuilt here, we can go back to our homeland. Then Armenian part, they often say that as if we want some compensation. No, never. There can be payment for the rebuilding of our houses, but we don't want compensation. We want to go back to our homeland. There is no compensation to this. Nothing can be equal to like right of return hours. So everyone who is alive now after the past deportation, they and their children want to go back, but it is of course voluntarily. This process will be voluntarily. We will explain to people what can happen when you go back to your native land, and when we are re-registering them, they don't even let us to explain them. They say, I will go back. It's my homeland. I will go back to Göçe. I will go back to Basarkeşehir. The names also changed. The toponyms, Azerbaijani toponyms, also changed to some Armenian names, like Göçe, they changed it to Sevan. But Sevan, let me explain, there was an Albanian toponym, Sivank. There was a church, Albanian church, and it took its name from this, Sivank, Sevan. It's also Turkish or Albanian-like toponym. So they changed some of these toponyms also. And Azerbaijanis will be back, and they will live there after the return of course. And Western Azerbaijan community also will operate there in order to keep the compactness of Azerbaijanis.
Let me ask you again a practical question. So it's been a long time, right? Yeah. Many of the original people who were evicted, who were forcibly deported, are dead, right? Just because of biology. People get old and die. So we're talking about their children, their grandchildren, who, and you say, yes, they want to go back to their ancestral land, to their villages, and what have you. But it is also obvious to everybody that at least for the time being, even though blessedly, Armenia and Azerbaijan are at peace, and let's hope it stays that way. There will be no more conflict, the territorial issues having been finally resolved, but there will still be, naturally, there will be tensions. So if all of a sudden you are in an Armenian village and the government says, hey, we're now rebuilding the houses for all the Azeris who were evicted, forcibly deported decades ago, and please give them a warm welcome, because they're all brothers and sisters, because we are all Armenians, regardless of our ethnicity and language. Seriously, do you think that's feasible? In other words, wouldn't it be the case that these people, assuming that this can actually happen, I'm trying to be practical here, let's say it happens. The Armenian government says, okay, we accept your demands. And I'll get to that to another point in another moment, which is also very important. We will rebuild the houses. We will welcome these former citizens with open arms. Do you think that the population in these villages, who haven't seen Azeris for decades, and now they see them arriving, and they would say, yes, welcome, brothers and sisters, we're so happy you're here? I mean, that's somewhat not realistic, in my opinion, considering the long history, which we hope it's really a past history, of very strong animosity between the two countries that you know all too well, which again, it's over, and we're all happy that it's over. But to say to the Azeri people, sorry, to the Armenian people, to say to them, you should welcome your brothers and sisters who were, by wrong policies, evicted and forced to leave with nothing, with leaving all their belongings, their property, their businesses, their land behind. How practical is this to have all these people say, okay, right of return, it's a United Nations, policy. Everybody should have the right of return, and the host government should do whatever it can in good faith to make that possible and ease the process. But do you think it's practical to think that if let's say there are 300,000 people who were forcibly evicted, and let's say now, I don't know what the number is, 100,000 want to go back, maybe more, I don't know what the numbers are, and that they would just take a car, go across the border, and go. That doesn't work that way, right? You understand. How do you see this happening in the practical world, leaving aside laws and international law, which I fully understand, but when we go down to reality, how would this happen in practice?
Yes. So for the peace in the region, we should start from some point. We should start from one point at least. Of course, it will not be a great scale going back process. It will be step by step. And we somehow used to live together before the last deportation in Armenia. Also that we had 4 deportations, and they were good neighbors. They still remember that I had Armenian neighbor. We had good relations, and of course in Azerbaijan also, in Karabakh also, they all live together. So we have this practice. We somehow have it, and of course, let me just remind you that. In the areas from which Azerbaijanis were deported last time, during the last deportations, Azerbaijanis used to live compatibly. In the villages where Azerbaijanis used to live, there were less Armenians, maybe 3 or 4 families. They used to live, this is Azerbaijani villages, which are they completely empty now. I can show you some examples. Azat village, Kut village, they are completely empty because it was Akhil, Zarkand of Azerbaijani villages. If you look from Google Maps, you will see the empty houses. Mostly 800-900% of the villages is empty, ruined, because it was Azerbaijani villages. So around Goychev Lake and down a little bit close to around Nakhchivan, Azerbaijanis used to live compatibly. So if they go back to these villages, maybe they will have 3 or 4 Armenian neighbors. And even if they have more Armenian neighbors, okay, we know that it will be a warm welcome. And there will be international mission to control the situation, first of all. Then step by step, maybe there can be some clashes. International mission, I think it can reduce it. But then we used to live somehow together. I think this practice after the peace treaty, we should somehow start from one point. So yes, it can look to you that it will be a hard process. Yes, it will be a hard process. It will take time. Maybe not all of the refugees will go back to their areas. We will send them step by step. 10,000 of them, 20,000 of them, then voluntarily process, of course. Whoever wants to go back, they will.
Let me ask you this. Of course, this is a question, as you will see, completely related to this, the cost. You said the Armenian government should undertake to build or rebuild or repair or fix up the houses, the places where these people who were forcibly deported came from. But depending on the numbers, we're talking about a lot of money, to undertake this, let's call it reconstruction, rehabilitation, whatever the appropriate word is, depending on the areas. Clearly, as you know very well, Armenia is not exactly a very rich country. So how, to say, okay, you have to anticipate, I don't know, $100 million, 200 million, maybe more, depending on, even if we do it in stages, as you say, incrementally, that there will be first a number of people, then maybe some more over time. So that this is not going to be 100,000 people moving in back to Armenia tomorrow. But still, the cost could be quite extensive. And then also not just the cost of housing, but providing services, electricity, water, sanitation, all those things that people are used to in a normal, reasonably modern society. All these are additional costs. Schools, hospitals, all these things would have to be provided. Again, I know that at the moment there hasn't been any real interest in any of this. Do you have, as a non-governmental organization there, any opportunity to have frank discussions with any Armenian counterparts? You said you tried to engage the government, but is there any other entity, maybe people in those villages, I know, non-government people in Armenia, that you can engage in a peaceful, friendly, open-minded conversation to say, hey, at least let's talk about this. Let's be practical. Let's be all human in the sense, let's try to satisfy the desires of those who want to go back. And as you say, it may not be all of them, maybe just a percentage that want to go. Others may not be interested in that anymore. But is there any chance that you can advance this issue in a productive way with the Armenian counterparts? Because in the end, you talked about international mission, which is great, mediation, the UN, all those things are very good. But ultimately, you need to talk to Armenians who can say, well, you know what? This merits consideration. We are willing to entertain this request, and let's try to be creative in finding a practical way that can actually work. Is there any such dialogue at the moment, or do you think you will have such a dialogue at some point?
Mm-hmm. As you said, in international law, in legal processes, it's like this. Armenia should assist us in every creating in every circumstances. Armenia should do it, but let's keep it to other side. Maybe it's my personal opinion now. It's just not official. My personal opinion. Okay, maybe there will be. I said international framework, international mission. Maybe Armenia can ask some international organizations to assist them, to give them grants. Or I know that as Azerbaijani government also will never leave us in some positions that we will feel ourselves alone. like in front of some problems, I think Azerbaijani government, Azerbaijan also can somehow assist that. I don't know. It's my, as I say, personal opinion. If they see that we are having some problems, like financial problems, going back to our ancestral homeland, so maybe there will be some assistance to Armenia. But first, Armenia should accept this reality that we are refugees according to international law, and we have the right to go back to our homeland. So there will be, of course, negotiations. I don't know how the negotiations process will go. Maybe Azerbaijan, maybe international organizations, maybe some neighboring countries will help Armenia. I can't predict it. But the point is Armenia should start this process. Yes, we sent letter to Armenian government. We wanted to go to the dialogue with them. I imagine that it's my personal opinion that Armenian people in Armenia, they are also tired of wars. They are also tired of conflicts. They also want peace. I want just to believe to it. We wanted to talk to Armenian counterparts, Armenian sides. Maybe if they didn't describe this as a territorial claim, maybe we could go further. We could go like to keep in touch with some Armenian NGOs like this, but they said territorial claim. Now they changed the opinion of the people as if we are making territorial claims. But if someone I'm sure that there are some Armenian people also. They can think normally, and they say that no, how can an NGO make a territorial claim? It's not a territorial claim. We used to live with them together. And when I'm writing, or via Azerbaijanis, other Azerbaijani people write on social media, they are some hatred, they say no, according to the thesis from government, or maybe from some radical Armenians, which are very active on Twitter. Like, I think that Armenian lobby is more active in this acts, like more than Armenians who live in Armenia, because they are aware of the country, they are aware of the very far away from the conflict. It's good to see the conflict from from a side and say that it's so fine, go on, go ahead, continue the conflict, it's fine. But when you're in the country itself and you're facing some poverty, some you are losing your loved ones because of the conflict, it's not like good to say, okay, go ahead, go have some conflicts, go have some war. So I think that in Armenia we will find people to keep in touch. We didn't have this chance yet. We couldn't because we couldn't have touch with Armenian government. I think that some people also are afraid if government is not keeping in touch with us, so they are also afraid to keep in touch. So that's why I'm so hopeful that we will achieve it, and we will go back to our homeland, because it's our right. It's our right according to international law.
That you explained that very well, but let's clarify this again. You already said it, but for the record, to be absolutely clear, there is no territorial claim, right? It's not that you want to, quote, invade Armenia with the excuse of returning refugees, that there is no territorial claim. These people would go back as Armenian citizens, which they used to be in the past, or at least their parents or their grandparents or whoever they were. So there is no territorial claim. It's just the right of return of refugees who would go back as Armenian citizens, ready to obey the laws of Armenia, right? To comply with the rules, the regulations, whatever there is in Armenia, and they would go back as good, loyal Armenian citizens. That's really important, correct? That's what it is. No territorial claim. Is not like to say, oh, we go back to the Azeri, what used to be an Azeri village, we reoccupy it and put the Azerbaijan flag on it and say, oh, this is Azerbaijan. No, there's none of that, correct?
They occupy. We didn't occupy them before also.
So that is clear. So the question is now, at what point, just to understand your work and how you're trying to advance this issue, which is important and should not be forgotten just because it happened. People say, oh, but that happened a long time ago, let's forget about it because it's ancient history. Well, apparently it's still alive, as your work and your organization and the people you are speaking to obviously testify. It is an issue that is still alive. But I was trying to think, and obviously I'm not an expert in your region, in your area. Could there be the good offices of a third party, another country? I don't know. You got Georgia right there next to you. And I know in other instances, the Republic of Georgia has worked a little bit as a go-between, right? Between Armenia and Azerbaijan in other issues. And I'm just suggesting that, not because it has to be Georgia, but any other country that could become, that is trusted by both parties, that is impartial, that has nothing to gain or lose which way this goes. Could you be helped in your effort by asking someone, a third party, to be your ambassador, if you wish, your go-between, your intermediary, to, if it's not possible for the moment, to hopefully there will be a time in which people from Armenia will travel freely to Azerbaijan, and Azerbaijani people, when all is settled, will travel freely without any fear of violence or anything at all to Armenia. That's the world that I think we all want to see when all this is behind us. But for the time being, do you think that any third party could help in explaining your cause to people that hopefully on the other side would be willing to at least listen and to appreciate your case? Is there anything like that ongoing, or that you're thinking about? You don't have to give me the specifics because it may be something is going on is confidential. But do you see that as an avenue to advance your project, or not, or no?
Okay, yes,
please.
Let me answer the first part of your question, that about the territorial claim. Azerbaijanis used to live in Armenia till the last deportation, 1987 to 1991. They used to live there. They were there. Was it territorial claim? No. They were Armenian citizens. If we want the situation back, is a territorial claim? How can it be territorial claim? We want to go back to live there. We want to be Armenian citizens again. We had this passport, Armenian passport. We have heritage there. If we want the situation back, I repeat, is it territorial claim? When they used to live there, when they used to live in Basarkecher, when they used to live in Zot, was it territorial claim? They were there, they existed. So we want this situation back. We want to go back to our homes, as we are refugees. We are NGO. We are not government. We are non-governmental organization, and we don't have army. So we sent a letter to Nikol Pashinyan. Yes, the territorial claim are not made by letter. So the second part. Yes, I said that we are going to have international mission. This mission can consist of any country they want. It can be Georgia, it can be Turkey, it can be, as you said, Russia. It doesn't matter. Whoever has peaceful, intentions, it can be in this international mission. When I said that international mission should go there first to check the safety, I meant the countries. International mission, of course, it will not consist of one country just. It can be UN international mission also. It can be a mission consisting of Georgian, Caucasian countries. The countries, of course, we rely on because we are going to go back to these lands, to our ancestral homeland. So we know that it was our historical lands. We used to live there, but we are not making territorial claim. We are just want to go back, not to some new situation, to go back and to live there again, to reintegrate to Armenian society, to live side by side with them. So there is no territorial claim. Absolutely, it's just they want to run off the situation, to run, maybe to just prolong the time, maybe to just to gain the time. So this is not. We didn't say that we are give us, for example, Göçer, give us Basarkeçer, give us Zod. No, we say that we go back to our homeland. Let them read our concept of return again. It's in English language.
Okay. Do you think that perhaps once all the outstanding issues, government to government issues, so you're an NGO, I understand, you're not the Azerbaijani government, I understand that. So, but do you think that once all the outstanding issues, including a finalized agreement between Yerevan and Baku regarding a border that is mutually recognized, which I think it's negotiations that are currently underway, that once all that is done and the two countries finally normalize fully relations, and that you have, I don't know, full diplomatic relations, everything is going to be fine, that at that point, your issue may have greater chance of being listened to on the other side of in Armenia? Do you think, in other words, that once everything else is settled and there's nothing to argue about, nothing that needs to be adjudicated, that then you may find more, how can I say, a friendlier audience on the other side in Armenia, that people would say, okay, you know what, let's look at this. Let's look at all these Azerbaijani people who used to live here. And that's a historic fact. This is not made up. And let's see what we can do to create a more relaxed and friendlier environment where, you know, people can go across borders, and if those people live there, as it is proven, let them go. At least let's start the process. Do you think that conclusion of all the various negotiations would be helpful to your cause, or the two things are separate, they move on different planes?
So I know that, and everyone knows that it's will not be, it's not going to be a very easy process. We were in conflict, we were in war for 30 years, more than 30 years. It will be step by step. After 2 world wars, countries, they came up together and they are now living side by side. It will take time. And it's up to governments, of course, it's up to Armenian government also to make to prepare its citizens to the peace. And they should stop hatred speech. They should stop, some propaganda like showing Azerbaijani people as enemies. So all of this should be stopped. And we will not be, of course, maybe so warm welcomed as I repeated before, but there will be a fact that we are back, we are living there. First with the international mission, then when international mission leaves, of course we will see, we will be face to face with them. So it will take time. And just let me to add this fact that in the world community also accepts our right to return. For example, 57 countries of Islamic Organization of Islamic Countries, they said that we recognize, we reaffirm the right of return of Western Azerbaijanis, and we condemn that the Muslim heritage is destroyed in Armenia. So, of course, besides of our houses, there is our cultural heritage also destroyed there. So we also want, maybe Armenia should have more assistance to rebuild them also. And these people deserve seeing the graves of their father, mother, maybe their grandfather, also grandmother, etc., their relatives. So it's our right to return. Maybe the people also have here questions. Maybe we can answer that here also.
Celine, can we look at the, I can't see very well. Can you read those? Julia, can you read the questions? Can you see
No,
them?
raising hands, and they just writing about
Simon, if you will allow me later on, I want to clarify. My name is Bakhtiar Mamadov, and first of all, I want to express thanks to your university and especially Ms. Zulfikar for wonderful and comprehensive presentation about the legacy of the Western Azerbaijanis history, etc. But I'm a lawyer by background, and I want to clarify maybe later on after our conversation certain issues, if you don't mind.
Mr.
Okay.
Paolo.
Yes, I mean, regarding, first of all, regarding the terminology. Terminology is very important. First of all, regarding the citizenship matters.
What is the question? What is the question?
I don't have a question. I wanted to clarify certain issues. Let's say terminology of the citizenship. During the Soviet Union, there were no citizenship of the, let's say, Azerbaijan, Armenia, or Georgia. There was citizenship of the Soviet Union. But these people who resided in the territory of the, let's say, Armenia, Azerbaijan, and Georgia, they had the right after collapse of the Soviet Union, if they legally resided in this area until certain period of time, they had a right to the citizenship. That's why we couldn't say that, let's say, Azerbaijanis or Armenian who resided in Azerbaijan, they were citizen of Azerbaijan. It's like from the international legal perspective, it's not correct, but they had the right to be citizen of the, let's say, Armenia or citizen of Azerbaijan or Georgia. This is in terms of the terminology. Also regarding the communication, I think important is, as it was mentioned, that by brilliantly Ms. Zulfikar, Azerbaijan is expelled from Western Azerbaijan, former Yerevan Khanate, within the century, maybe 4 times, and some of them were, as you mentioned, by decree, like it happened by Stalin's decree, but another time it was as a result of the clash. And but each of them has very strong identity. Like me, for example, in 4th generation, my background is from Yerevan Khanate in the province Darachichak, which means that Valley of the Flowers. But we had like a clear identification of these lands because majority of the people were Azerbaijanis. That's why I think we need to take some steps, and maybe better to build confidence, and confidence building is very important. And also people who have experienced mutual living, they have to kind of communicate and take some steps on solution of these problems. So just some remarks.
Thank you very much for the
Paolo,
clarification. Yes, go ahead.
Let me bring a clarification to the clarification of Mr. Mamadov. So Armenia declared itself heir of all Armenian republics. And in this situation, Armenia is the heir of the Armenian Soviet Republic also. So if we were citizens who resided in Armenian Soviet Republic, so Armenia is now responsible for everything. There were the same people, that only governments changed. They were Armenians who were ruling this country during Armenian Soviet Republic also. So Armenia is the heir of the republic, which was in nowadays Armenian territory. So we have the right to return, and we were the citizens of this Armenian Republic, which is now here. Now they are here is nowadays Armenia, and now we have our right to return because we are refugees. We were citizens of this republic, and we made the research. We have really good professor experts, and we wrote down concept of return. We researched every point that can make pass, that can will be addressed like this. For example, like Mamadov said, we have answers to every question. So that's why if we had passports in our hands, we were citizens. So it doesn't change. It was Soviet Republic or it was Armenian Republic. It was Armenian government. Now go for this. Thank you.
So basically, the Armenian Republic was a successor to the Soviet Union. And so therefore it inherited, as you say, all the rights and responsibilities thereof. Okay, I think we're very close now to the end of our time. Is there any other point that before we go, Ulia, you would like to give as a parting point? So I think we thank you for educating us so that now we better understand the complexity of this issue, and indeed, you know, how it stands from a perspective of international law, the right of return, but also the complexity of trying to achieve this goal of allowing lawfully and peacefully people who used to be Armenian citizens of Azeri ethnicity to one day, hopefully not a distant day, have the opportunity, if they so wish, to go back to their towns or villages, ancestral homes, what have you. Is there anything else you would like to add before we go? Because we're almost out of time. As a final consideration, in terms of how you see your mission of your organization, and you in particular as a spokesperson, you know, in terms of how this matter can be advanced in a good, productive way, hopefully with relevant Armenian counterparts willing to sit down with you, whether it's in Baku, in Yerevan, or in Tbilisi, or Geneva, I don't know where, you know, to talk and see whether progress can be made in good faith on both sides. What would you say that your wishes are right now in terms of the road ahead for you and your organization?
So we are living in a region, in Caucasus region, side by side with Georgia, with Armenia, with other countries. We all live in Caucasus, and we should find a way to live further here. It's not the war, it's not conflict. We should find peace, and for peace, for the healthy peace process, everything should be, every stone should be in its place. How can there be a healthy peace? For example, we are staying here. We cannot go to visit the graveyards of our ancestors. How can we have healthy peace? We have, some questions now. When we will be able to go back to Zod, to Basar Keçar, etc. So I have a message for some international organizations also, please, because when they are, for example, giving statement regarding to some group of people who are involved in the conflict, we ask them in every our statement that, please, if you are calling yourselves an organization which defends human rights, please don't keep mum to the right of more than 300,000 people, because we also have right to return. We also need to be heard. You can't just to keep silence to our issue. We call them each time that 300, it's not 300,000. It's not a small, small. Just amount. Just please keep your neutrality and pay attention to our right to return also. Thank you.
Well, with that, we really thank you for discussing and presenting these issues to us. Our purpose here, obviously, is to provide a forum and a venue so that the general public, especially here in the United States, can become more aware of complicated situations, and we appreciate your contribution. I repeat to our audience that this event today is part of our series on refugees. We will be talking about other issues, later on. Very different. Each situation is different history, different people, different circumstances. But for today, we're really very thankful to you and to your organization to give us your time and your presentation, your side of this complicated story, which I'm afraid most people, just don't see because it's not in the news, it's not in the headlines, and therefore it's very easy to pretend that it never happened. Okay, so thank you for educating us and for allowing us to ask you some questions. And with that, on behalf of the, I thank our audience on behalf of the Global Policy Institute and Bay Atlantic University. Once again, my name is Paolo von Schirach as your host, and we stand adjourned. Thank you so much, and we'll continue the conversation maybe another time. All the best. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It was an honor to participate in this webinar. Thank you for inviting me. Have a good day. Thank you. Bye-bye.
All the best.